Welcome to Astronaut Roundtable, episode 327. My name is Ben Baumhofer. Your ears don't deceive you. This is actually still the same show. However, this week we've got something special planned.
That's right, Ben.
I'm hold on. I'm getting to you.
Oh, sorry. You were
If you want to
really,
talk
that was
about,
a long, dramatic pause.
I know it was dramatic
That
because
was
there was music
extra
going on that
dramatic.
they're not used to.
Oh,
Okay. Anyways, we've got something special planned this week. And starting off with one of those special things, John Jagger, my co-host, my friend, my sidekick, or main hero, my part of my super team. Welcome aboard to the show.
well, people are going to be surprised to find me here. Hello! It was me all along on the show. Hello, everybody. That's right, Ben. We got a special show for them today.
Yes, we do. So, if you're new to the show or if you haven't been around for very long, there's something you might not know about John and myself, and that is we love Spider-Man.
We do. In an unhealthy way.
Yeah, some might say it's healthy, like Marvel might think it's healthy, but others not so much. But regardless, this is not going to be an episode about World of Warcraft. So if you're bummed about that and only tune in for that, hey, we're going to be back to it next week.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
we have a tendency, again, assuming you're new around these parts, to when there's a holiday, and it coincides with a geeky movie that Ben and I are very excited about. We have a tendency to take a week off. You know, it might be a case where perhaps we might forego doing a show because we're too busy because of the holiday or whatever, and instead we just talk about a movie. It's a movie show. It's a movie episode.
yeah. So welcome to the movie episode about Spider-Man Far From Home. I will warn you, there will be spoilers in a tiny little bit.
Okay.
So, I mean, first off, more than anything, I figure if there's one little bit of information that people want to know from us, it's basically, did we like the movie? So, and surprisingly enough, you and I haven't really talked about it at all since we've seen this. So I'm really curious, did you like the movie?
Hey Ben, I don't mean to blow your mind or anything, but I really liked the movie. Like, a lot.
What? John, we agree on a lot of things. We disagree on a lot of things. And in this particular case, it's one of those agreements. I thought the movie was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I would like to say more, but are we going to give, okay, we can now spoil the movie?
Oh, yeah, when we get to that point, yeah.
Okay, we're not spoiling it yet, though.
Yeah, so overall, I think it did a great job of, again, capturing, Peter Parker's dual life as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And, how things relate, how he works through problems and everything like that. It's one of the things that once... Sony made the deal with Marvel and actually let them use their own character again, that has really been, proven true over and over again with Civil War, with, Homecoming, as well as, what you've seen in Infinity War and Endgame. Spoilers, he shows up in Endgame. If you haven't seen that yet, I'm sorry. That we didn't put our spoiler warning for that. But,
we don't have to. They gave a time, and we're past that
that's
time.
True. That's right.
Again,
but,
more movie creators do this because it feels good to be able to be like, no, there was a time. You were given a time limit. You were told that you have to act within this limit, and if you didn't, it's not our fault anymore.
Very true. Besides, they made a movie about Spider-Man after he got snapped away, so there's probably a good chance that he came back.
Yeah, he's back, everybody.
Yeah. But anyway, so, they handled that really well. At least I thought so. And, overall, it had a very good feeling of kind of like the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, like that sort of feel. Because, again, he is, still in high school, still young and everything like that. And it was just a freaking fun movie.
It was. I think this was exactly what I wanted post Endgame. I know a lot of people were very excited about the idea of seeing the fallout of Endgame and how that impacted Peter and how people are going to move on. And this movie definitely addresses that, but it doesn't dwell on it in a big way.
Yes.
And I think it was what I needed. I didn't need a movie that was going to be 100% solemn and gloomy. I needed a movie that was going to be like, yeah, that's what Endgame was. That's what the end of Endgame was. And I mean, it had a good ending, but that was our time to be sad and feel sad and, be awkward in a theater where a bunch of people are crying. That was that time. Now's the time to move on and get back to, to put it in comic book terms, we're back into the single issues. The event's over. It's now time to go back and start a new adventure. And that's exactly what this is. It works as both, oddly enough, a really fitting epilogue to Endgame, but a really fitting prologue to what's coming next.
Exactly. And the fact that it's like a lot of people are saying that, oh, well, it's the beginning of phase 4 for the Marvel movies. I can see that, even though it's officially the end of phase 3, which it definitely fills in that gap as well. I think you nailed it when you said it's the epilogue and prologue for everything to come. And, yeah. Speaking of stuff to come,
well, Ben clearly liked this movie maybe a little more than I did, but
a little bit. But no, let's stop being around the bush. I think it's spoiler time. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, just pause it right here. Hang on to the recording, because guess what? We'll still be here.
We wanted to give them plenty of time. They're like, oh, yeah. I just picture a comical scene of someone like, no, they're gonna spoil, and then they drop their phone and they're fumbling with the phone for a minute. They're like, oh no, oh no, they're gonna just immediately blurt out a spoiler. I just know it. Oh, I can't get it in time. Thank goodness they paused long and awkwardly.
Yeah, but okay, so I think you're absolutely right. The movie starts off with the perfect tone to recapture the honoring of what happened with Endgame, and then jumping right into, we're gonna have some fun with this.
Yeah, it is the biggest kiss and a slap opening that I've ever seen, because it's I mean, the movie has a little teaser opening sort of thing, but then once it gets to the actual kind of opening credits bit, you get Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, and you get Comic Sans font saying In Memoriam, and you then get a picture by picture by picture of all the heroes that died and stayed dead in Endgame. And
well, one of them technically not.
Wait a minute, well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Cap is in there, but I mean, for storytelling purposes, they probably basically said that he died.
Yeah,
makes sense. As opposed to, oh well, he went back in time and didn't do anything during all these horrible crises.
Right.
But it's cool. So,
and who knows? Maybe that's the story they're putting out there. Is Cap died? He can go be his old man self somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, as this is happening, I'm like, okay, who is doing this? And then all of a sudden, the candles with the Getty Images logo on it pops up, and I'm like, oh, it's a school. This is great.
It's a school thing. It's a school project, and it's one of those things where you're still a little sad because the heroes you liked are dead, but at the same time you can't help but laugh because it's such a this is exactly the kind of stuff high school kids would put together when they're feeling real conflicted about things that went on. And it also serves as a decent way to catch people up on here's where we're at storyline wise.
Yeah, and I mean how they dealt with the explanation of the snap and what happened afterwards, and everybody calling it the blip. I love that it's oh yeah, we're not calling it what it was. It's just because they weren't they weren't the superheroes. They didn't know that was a snap.
Yeah, the only people who know it's a snap was the Avengers. To everybody else, it was just a blip, just a little 5-year blip.
But I mean, it answers the question of, okay, did they show up exactly where they were when they were snapped out, which was hilariously shown.
Yep.
And I mean, that mixed with what May talks about at the homeless shelter and everything just really shows it's like, oh yeah, this is there were repercussions. We're gonna just really lightly touch on those and then move forward.
Yeah,
Worked really well.
it was good. It also illustrates. So I'm going to say flat out, I already said it at the beginning, I love this movie. I
Hmm.
really, really do. I have a couple of nitpicks with this movie that ultimately the things that I think these are bad things, but I think the thing they're in service to is good enough to make up for them
Hmm.
being bad. And this is actually ties into my first one, which is this is a movie that does not hold up under scrutiny. This is a movie that if you
Hmm.
think about it too much, it starts to fall apart. And I hate that I
Yeah.
sometimes do it, but I do it. And issue number one is why on the last day of school are they sitting there telling everybody how the blip worked on their little news video? It doesn't make any sense. It's there for us as the audience, and it's appreciated by the audience, I'm sure. But again, if you start to think about it a little too much, you're like, everybody knows what happened. You've had time to think about this. And it is one of the things that will
Is it
probably.
really the last day of school though?
Yeah, that's what they said in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Because he
I didn't
cusses. The
catch that
kid
as the last day of school.
cusses, and he's like, it's basically the last day of school. It's fine.
Oh no, he said we're a scholastic school.
Oh, is that
Like
what he
we're a
said? I thought he
yeah,
said it's
yeah.
basically the last day of school.
Yeah, no, no. It's like, yeah, we're a scholastic school. It's fine. So, because, higher learning, higher thinking, that kind of thing.
Is that how it
Unless
works?
I'm way wrong,
I don't think that's what
which I
he
mean,
said.
I'm pretty sure.
You don't go on your big trip in the middle of school. You go at the end.
I know, but whatever.
It's basically the
Doesn't
last
matter.
day of school, Ben.
Okay. We'll just go with that.
Anyway, point is, even if it wasn't, this is not like day one back in class, and there's no reason for them to explain the blip.
Yeah.
Also, occasionally the term blip gets really misused. They talk about how some kids are now 5 years older, but then they also say like he got blipped, and I don't understand where that comes from. So the kid who
Are you talking about with Flash?
not Flash. I'm talking about the guy who's interested in
Oh,
MJ,
Brad?
Brad. So they talk about how Brad didn't get blipped and aged 5 years, but then later there's another line where they talk about him and they're like, it's not fair. He gets blipped back all hot. He didn't get blipped
Oh,
though.
well, yeah, but it's the idea of we come back and he's all hot.
Yeah, it's weirdly written though
Like
to say he
the
got
blip
blipped
happened.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are
You know
little
what?
nitpicks that
We need a copy of the script so we can figure out some of these things because we're going off of memory of seeing it you 2 times and me 3 times.
yeah,
So
exactly. Um, anyway, it's little weird things like that, but it's things like that that I get stuck on as I'm trying to figure it out because I was like, okay, wait, he was one of the kids that got left behind. Why is he still going on their class trip? Wouldn't he have been in school for that period of time?
yeah,
And it's a little bit, it loses me a little bit as I try and figure it out. But again, this is what my point is. Most of it is in the service of let's just get into the situation and start having fun with it. And that's exactly what the movie does because you need an explanation of what happened. Here it is. Don't think about it too much. Let's go have fun. And then that's what happens.
and good lord, did we have fun? It was so good. It's great because again, it kind of shows what's going on. At the end of Homecoming, May sees Peter in the Spidey outfit, so it's like, are they going to try and play it off as if he was just wearing a costume? Like, how is it going to play out? But no, she's totally embraced it and like happy that he's Spider-Man, which is something that I love. It's a different way of looking at it, and if you're in some of the later Ultimate Spider-Man comics, she knew that he was Spidey, and May did what she could to help out and everything like that, and it's so much better and so different than the okay, I need to hide this very obvious thing from the person that I live with. So
Especially when they
so good.
establish how bad he is at hiding it.
Exactly. All you need to do is just pay attention a little bit, and there you go.
Yeah, I mean, in the first movie, he basically comes down from the ceiling with Ned standing literally right in the room and gets caught red handed. He gets figured out by the vulture. He gets
Albeit, that's
caught.
still the best scene in that entire movie.
He gets caught by Aunt May doing literally the exact same thing. He's just not very good at hiding his secret identity, and this movie also is no exception to that. He gets caught
Mhm.
all the time, and then ultimately the movie says it doesn't matter at the end. But um,
Well,
yeah,
so okay, when he's backing up, backing away from Happy near the beginning at the homeless shelter, he closes the like goes through the curtains and everything. I'm just like, dude, put your mask on, and then turns around, and then he's still not on stage yet, but there's this opening right there. I'm like, dude.
So this is actually an issue I've had with the Spider-Man movies for a long time, which is Peter Parker's propensity. Ooh,
Hmm.
that's a tongue twister.
That's a
To
good one.
pull off his mask. They have these actors that they want to show, that they want to get facial performance out of, and all of that. And as a result, more often than not, Peter will either have his mask damaged so bad that he takes it off, or that you can
Hmm.
then totally see the actor's face, or he will come up with some reason why the mask has to come off. This has been true since Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah.
any chance he gets to take off the mask, he's pulling that mask off. Like, oh, I just swung for 10 seconds. Better take off my mask and look at the city.
Hmm.
And look, realistically, probably that mask sucks, would be my guess, and it
Yeah.
makes sense, but he wears it for a reason, and throughout, doesn't matter if it's Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, all of them do this. Every chance they get, the mask is coming off. Constantly.
Yeah.
And it drives
I
me
mean,
crazy as a Spider-Man
after this
fan.
this big giant battle on the Tower Bridge, and he just walking down the street without his mask on. Luckily, it's MJ.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
and
like,
she's the
dude.
only person in the city on that bridge at that particular moment. Uh, but it drives me crazy, and so the end scene with J. Jonah Jameson, skipping away ahead here, but where he basically reveals the identity to everybody, honestly makes me a little bit happier, because now at least I don't care. Now every time he wants to pull the damn mask off, great, because it might as well just be Iron Man. Same deal. Just like the mask will come on when it's important and relevant for fighting, I guess. And
Yeah.
other than that, if it's off, who cares? And so I'm actually really, really happy that in the movies they have decided to reveal his identity to the world, simply because that mask thing used to drive me crazy.
Yeah, and it's one or it makes me really curious on how the fallout is actually going to happen with this because we already know that Matt Gargan wants to kill him.
Yeah.
We already know that Vulture's out there who knows who he is. Are they going to like bring them back? Is this how a Sinister Six kind of situation is going to be formed? Like, what are we looking at possibly for the future? I mean, I really hope that they don't do the whole, hey, it's the third movie, so let's throw every bad guy at him because that traditionally has not worked in any superhero movie. But the idea of, everybody in his neighborhood knowing who he is something that I find, kind of interesting to see how it's going to play out because I mean, in the comics, with Civil War, we saw something entirely different happen and everything. Like, I don't think that they're going to kill Marissa Tomei right away. It
No.
just, she might be in danger, but I don't see them like killing her or anything.
They have done a
Um,
pretty good job of avoiding the tropes.
mm-hmm.
And even when the tropes happen, they do a good job of sidestepping it. Like you said, with Aunt May catching him in the last movie, they sidestep that entire conversation, that entire fallout. It's just not a factor.
Yep. Sorry, I'm just thinking of him at the homeless shelter. Of, thank you, May, for that. Sorry, and my mind's randomly going to be jumping all over the place with this movie because there's a lot to talk about, and
Yeah,
God,
I
we're
want to take a moment though to go off of another nitpick to talk about my favorite thing in the movie,
okay.
because this is what I mean, and this is the perfect example of there are weird things that don't hold up under a lot of scrutiny, but it's always in the service of the movie just being more fun and being better.
Hmm.
And I think there is no more perfect example of that than the Mysterio versus Spider-Man fight.
Yes.
We learned very early on that it takes a team of people and a lot of programming and a lot of rehearsal and planning to do these elaborate battles and illusions. And then one on one, within hours of learning that he has to fight Spider-Man, Mysterio has a like citywide illusion with multiple like twists and turns, and then an incredibly trippy all over the place battle planned out, uh, essentially coded out. And deep down, there's no way that that team came together and actually programmed that in time and established it that
Mhm.
way. However, that fight is the coolest fight I have seen in a superhero movie, maybe ever. That
Now,
thing
are you
was
talking about the
perfect.
end, or are you talking about when he confronts him in the Europe police place?
Yeah, when he confronts him pretending to be Nick Fury, and then we proceed
Okay.
to get like 5 minutes of Mysterio being
Oh yeah.
Mysterio, and it's so freaking
It
good.
is amazing. Like the fact that his own costume changes multiple times throughout the whole thing, and like you see the when the real world like pops in, like when he punches Mysterio, but it's actually one of the pillars holding up the ceiling and everything. And like after he dives after MJ, and as soon as he dives, you're like, oh god, this is gonna end poorly. And like he like like shallow ends of the end of the pool dives into the ground, and
Yeah.
it the visuals and everything, and with the sound kind of going all over like this is a scene that you need to see in the theater because it plays with you as well as with Spider-Man.
Like, he
And
damn near kills Spider Man without throwing a punch.
mhm,
And that's pretty cool. And that's like, Mysterio has never been like a big threat to Spider Man, but he's always been one of my favorite villains. And
mhm.
so seeing it play out in this way was just incredible. It was so freaking cool. And the cuts from spiders coming out of like a zombie Iron Man face, and then the multi eyes of
Yes.
the spiders turning into an army of Mysterios, and then that pulls back further into him being trapped in a globe, and it's just the globe is Mysterio's head and all of that, and it just is so trippy and it's so cool, and I loved that scene. I will probably go
Mhm.
back and watch that scene just when I want to cheer myself up because it's so freaking cool. It is such a good scene. And what makes it so great is the multiple times that it even tries to trick the audience. And I'm not going to say it's going to trick
Mhm.
everybody, but there are multiple times where you're like, oh, is that the real Nick Fury? Oh, no. Oh, is this real? Oh no. Like
Yeah.
it
And
messes with you in multiple places.
well, and even more so, the thing that I love about it is that it really makes its impression on Peter, of course, because at that point, you get the part where Happy shows up to save him, and then like he's running close, and then he realizes, oh crap, is this even real? And then we find out about the adult film, and then finally at the very end, after Quentin, is lying on the ground, and then Peter stops himself from getting shot in the face. And then finally, as Quentin dies, he's like, is this real? And I mean, how can you trust at that point? Because if you think about it, even though he had Edith, what if it wasn't the real Edith?
Yeah.
There's so many different things in there that like messes with your mind. It screwed him up, and like I mean, he came out stronger for it, but oh my gosh, it was one of those like total trippy mind fucks that I shouldn't have said that mind messing stuff that Mysterio is really known for, and I'm glad that they captured that as well as they did, and just really put it on display in such a great way.
Yeah, it was an amazing fight, and oh, I just loved it. I love the idea of somebody just completely like, Spider-Man has all these powers, all these abilities, and he beats him without fighting him even. Just by messing with
Hmm.
his brain, he just gets Spider-Man to basically take himself out.
Yeah,
Um,
and well, I mean, it even shows too is when he's planning with Happy, he's like, okay, he's just a guy, so I should be able to just take the glasses back, but he has a really hard time of it, and even when he's defeated, he almost loses.
yeah. And it really is a testament to how well that character is portrayed, with
Hmm.
Mysterio, with him, the kind of revisionist history they've given that character of being a genius and being somebody who was incredibly smart, and that's actually what led them down this path, was being
Hmm.
essentially an unstable smart person, like he manages to really get away with a lot. And
Oh yeah.
it's fascinating to see, and I couldn't be happier with the villain. Marvel movies not known for doing well on villains, but Spider-Man so far in the
Two
MCU,
for two.
2 for 2. I have loved both villains so much. It's been just amazing what they've done with these villains, and Spider-Man's always had good villains,
Hmm.
but typically they're good villains from like a visual and aesthetic standpoint, like not always necessarily. It's not like Batman and Mr. Freeze, right? There's not some
Yeah.
deep tragic story that's locked away and they're just waiting to come out, but it comes from, oh, they're visually interesting villains with cool powers that make for cool Spider-Man fights.
Yeah,
And
and like I love that the backstory that's there was built in throughout the rest of the MCU, and they were able to just kind of pluck from different things when they were creating, the whole backstory for him. So you don't go through a villain origin story. I mean, well, with the Vulture, the villain origin story was simply, oh, I can't do my job, and now I'm broke. It's super simple, turns into a super villain because of it, makes sense. With this had a lot coming in the fact that, like you pointed out earlier, there's a big team that goes into actually, creating these effects and working with everything and stuff. And I just love the fact that they well, again, kind of sidestepped everything. They give you a small explanation, and it's just super simple and easy to buy, completely based off of the idea of, oh yeah, this is something that Stark does. In fact, Iron Man 3 is completely predicated on the fact that Stark's just kind of like, throwing people away.
yeah, and it's interesting to see how much Tony Stark there is in this movie. How much he kind of looms over everything, both in a
Mhm.
good way and in a bad way. Even though he's no longer a factor in the MCU, you really get that. I love that the Spider-Man movies have not, they've definitely focused a lot on Tony, but not necessarily as a pure good guy. Like they've
Yeah.
probably more than any of the other movies done a good job of saying like, no, Tony was just as prone to messing up and making things worse as anything else. And there's this interesting moment where you're kind of like slapping your forehead when you're like, don't give Mysterio Edith, don't give him the glasses. What are you doing? And then he does it, and you're like, you freaking idiot, Spider-Man. But the other thing that you think about is this movie is so much about like who's going to be the next Iron Man, who's going to be the next Tony
Mhm.
Stark, and it's easy to kind of idolize that journey, like, oh, he's Iron Man, he's this big hero and all of this. But when you think about all the villains that Peter is facing, all of those villains are born out of Tony's failures and mistakes. And so to
Mhm.
see Peter also make those mistakes is to see him just walk the exact same path in some ways and try to also atone for some of the sins that Tony has committed.
One thing that I do want to point out is, if you don't know a lot about Spider-Man, or at least, his villains and everything, you might go into this movie not knowing about the twist. And I think that this is one of the first times through marketing and everything like that that they didn't telegraph any of that. Granted, I didn't, I tried to stay away from it because, after the first movie was basically given to me in the trailer, I'm like, okay, we're going to not do the same thing with this. But everything that I saw in it, though, Mysterio is he's this good guy. He's awesome. He's, a new hero and everything. And I wondered if they were going to stick with that or not, especially since in Captain Marvel they made the Skrulls good guys.
Yeah.
Were they going to change this for the cinematic universe or not? But as soon as as soon as Peter gave Quentin Edith, I'm like, oh no, he's bad guy. It's cool. Which, I mean, it up to that moment, you still kind of had this whole concept of like, how is he doing this, and what are his illusions that he's working with, or did they just straight up, is he actually from another world? Because the idea of all this cosmic stuff happening with different timelines as a different universe, and just the snap bending the fabric of reality and all that, it's possible that it could be something entirely different than what we were expecting. And I liked that the film was kind of playing with that through the whole thing, and then just totally flipped it right over, and it's like I kind of got you, but I didn't, but I did at the same time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it actually made this movie really hard to talk about, because the thing I want to talk most about is, oh my gosh, guys, they nail Mysterio, but you can't tell that to people who might actually be
Hmm.
surprised to learn that Mysterio was a villain. And, you know, I mean, you can say it and people are like, oh, is he a hero? But most people don't know who Mysterio is, and so saying that they nail Mysterio doesn't, it either tells people that, yeah, he's the villain that you think he's going to be, or it tells people, like, I don't know,
Oh, there's
maybe
something up with him.
yeah, I should pay more attention to him. They do a good job of not telegraphing it. I think, again, there's some things that will. I think in the first movie there was also a little bit of a surprise around the villain, which was, you know, that Vulture was Liz's dad.
Hmm.
And that was a really effective, really good surprise that got me, because, you know, that actually went against comic book lore and
Exactly.
history and all of that. And, you know, that's fun. And if you go back and watch that movie again, there's some really interesting little hints and tidbits thrown in prior to it, where it's like, oh, interesting. Like, you know, she talks about how her dad's always on business trips, and,
Hmm.
you know, the night that he's out gathering stuff also happens to be a night that the parents are out of town. There's just a lot of, like, connections that you can start to see forming and stuff like that.
Exactly. And just
And
his discussion of, you know, I'm doing it for my family and everything. It's there if you know to look.
yeah, I don't think Far From Home does as good a job with this. I think it actually kind of goes the other way. I think it kind of starts to fall a little bit more apart.
Hmm.
You know, there's a scene where a kind of upset Peter is sitting on the bridge, and Mysterio comes flying up to him and then sits down next to him and has a heart to heart, which is all fine and good when you think that Mysterio is a superhero. But starts to become kind of a weird gamble of a scene when you think, okay, well, the only way this is possible is if that's a hologram, because there's no point where he could do his quick change suit to get in there. So
Uh, I thought about that a bunch actually, and it so basically go back to when he's on the bridge with a gun pointed at Peter and he's invisible. So all you need to do is actually, you know, have the whole hologram over him. So he could be on the roof walking around but being masked by, you know, holographic invisibility or whatever, and sit down next to him and then, you know, kind of put that on there in case there's going to be some sort of contact. If you watch that scene again, Peter doesn't touch him, doesn't do anything with him physically. So technically it could have been a
it
hologram the
could
whole
be,
time,
but
which
that's
would have
why
been
I
stupid.
say it's a weird gamble to take. But
Yeah.
you're right. There are ways to explain it. I don't think it rewards the viewer. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like, there's a difference between what we're talking about with the first movie, which is, if you think about these scenes in the context of knowing the surprise, you're
Hmm.
rewarded with extra. In this, more often than not, you have to jump through hoops to explain it. You don't get an added little bonus. The only real bonus you start to get is little things like the way the water moves in the canal at the beginning is very
Hmm.
clearly like some drones passing under, and it makes a lot more sense when you see it that way. You're like, oh, that's just the drones going down there. Like, and little things like that. The scene, which for me was the moment where I was like, oh, Mysterio is Mysterioing, which is when he's fighting the fire monster and he shoots his
Hmm.
web and it hits something and he yanks it out of the air, and then they move on very quickly in the hopes that you'll
It's
just
such
kind
a
of forget
throwaway
about
thing.
it. Yeah. Um, but it's like, okay, you know, there's little things like that, but I feel like they had an opportunity to maybe tip their hand a little bit more.
Hmm.
That would have been a little more interesting to see in retrospect. But I think maybe there's also, you're dealing with somebody who's a known villain, and if you put too many hints in there, people are going to figure it out super early, and maybe they just
Yeah.
decided, let's try to make it as believable as possible the other way.
Which I, you know, I actually really appreciated that. And when you start mixing in the idea of Nick Fury and um, I forget her first name, but
Maria
Hill,
Hill. Yeah.
Maria. I was going to say Margaret. I'm like, that's not right, Ben. Shut up. So, So Nick Fury and Maria Hill in there, and then you're like, okay, well these are infallible characters. You know, they know everything that's happening. They know everything that's going on, and like you're watching it, and you kind of, you know, if you pay close enough attention, you're like, Nick Fury's acting a little weird, but I get that it's the whole he was gone for a while and back, and like his whole spiel about, you know, I was gone for 5 years and now I know nothing, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, that can kind of explain it and everything. And then the total reveal that they were scrolls the whole time, I'm like, okay, that's really cool and interesting. It explains a lot of stuff that I thought was weird, but then it goes to show why they didn't figure out that, you know, Quentin was an actual bad guy and everything as well. Because if it was real Nick Fury, there's no way he would have been hoodwinked by that. It just it's so against him and so against his character and everything. So I'm glad that they added that in there with the whole concept of what the hell is going on with Nick Fury and like his spaceship. Like, are they forming Sword? Like, what's going on with that? And I'm super excited for that.
Who
But
knows, man?
That's
Who
future
knows?
stuff. That doesn't matter. But I mean, the fact that this movie has a lot of things that, you know, don't appear what they should, or I can't think of the phrase, but, you know, appearances are deceiving and everything like that. It plays with a lot of that, and it's something that I actually really enjoyed as a theme throughout the whole thing because of it.
The movie
And also,
plays games, and it plays games that maybe have not even seen the full, like, reveal yet. They introduce a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Dimitri, which happens to be the first name of Chameleon. And so there was a lot of, like, is he Chameleon? Is Chameleon just hanging out there? What's he doing? Where's he gonna go? How's he gonna factor in? And you think about it and you're like, okay, they didn't do anything. In fact, Dimitri kind of mysteriously disappears in the movie's third act and is never heard from again.
mm-hmm.
Does that mean anything? I don't know. Who knows? Like, it's one of those things that just, you know, you spend a lot of time looking at Dimitri thinking, what's he doing? And they definitely love to do their little references back. I mean, they threw Jake Gyllenhaal in the scene from what is it, Winter Soldier or Civil War. They threw him in. It was like, oh, he was there. It was one of the programmers on this thing. And the tech makes perfect sense for Mysterio, and it's a really good conclusion to draw. But, you know, is this coincidence? Was this a plan? Where's Dimitri, Ben? Tinfoil hat. Where's Dimitri? What's he doing?
He's driving a bus right now.
Yeah, he turns out he liked it.
Oh my god, I freaking love all the upgrades that happen with the trip and how everything changes and everything. Like going back to just the school trip itself and like seeing the kids be kids was really great and really neat because, you know, I took class trips in 8th grade. We went to Washington DC. So, well, first of all, in homecoming, that was like, oh yeah, I did that. But I mean, they did what they would do. You know, some kids would try to sneak off or do different things. It totally makes sense. I love the fact that the teacher is the one from the other class trip where he was all, I can't lose another kid, not again,
not again.
And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, he is never gonna go on anything else, ever.
Yeah, that was another major strength for me about this movie was the fact that this film made me really enjoy the Peter Parker moments just as much as the Spider-Man moments. That doesn't always happen. I've never been a fan of Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. I've never found him interesting or compelling as that character.
I mean, except for that dance, right?
Well, I mean, they finally got a little something out of old Tobey. You know, I just... They have always struggled with a character whose, like, main trait is that you find both Peter and Spider-Man equally interesting. That's the idea, anyway. And this nailed it. I was just as interested to see what he did on his class trip as I was him fighting bad guys. And you know, the movie did a very good job of kind of balancing that by saying, like, oh, here's him, you know, hanging with his friends, having a good time. Here's him being Spider-Man, and I enjoyed both. Or being Night Monkey, the new...
That was so amazing.
The new superhero.
Like, oh, no, he's just a European knockoff. What's his name? Night Monkey.
Yep. New superhero. He's new in the game. Night Monkey. He's
Yeah.
great.
And then freaking on the bridge, Peter's like, oh, maybe he's a spider monkey.
Yeah, Spider Monkey explanation was pretty good. This is a pretty good joke. But yeah, I loved seeing the stuff for the class trip, and the guy, like whoever wrote this, I guess I was assuming it was the director, but it's not. He's got a separate writer. But like, not only is the acting great from the kids, because most of these quote unquote kids are not actually children, but they all pull it off extremely well. But the writing is so spot on for them, which is amazing.
Definitely.
Because it just, I mean, like we were saying at the beginning, that in memoriam thing is the kind of bullshit thing I would put together when I was a kid. Like, absolutely,
Yeah,
that
and
was
you would
the
think it
sort
was
of thing I
amazing
would
too.
do. There's a part where Peter can spy on the messages that everybody's sending on their phones, and Ned and it's Betty, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, they're texting each other while sitting right next to each other, typing I miss you more," back and forth. And it's so incredibly funny, but also so incredibly relatable. That was the dumb kind of shit that was happening in, middle school and high school, was stupid stuff like that. Just saying like, I miss you while you're like at school with the person. It's like, what are you doing? What are you saying right now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's funny because that tiny little what's on everybody's phone blip well, first of all, I just have to throw it out there. Even Dead, I'm the Hero was one of the best acronyms that Tony's ever done.
Yeah.
Just have to toss that up. But when Peter's looking through the glasses and you see all the different things popping up on the phones, it gives you like a bit of backstory to each individual person like on that trip, and it's those tiny little touches that really show a lot of thought and care have like gone into some of these ancillary characters that mean nothing to the entire movie. Like the fact that Peter's teacher, I mean, he cares so much about him. He wants to get him away from the perfume allergy. That's great. But then he's like, yeah, did I tell you that my wife pretended to be blimps?
Yeah, it's, oh my god. You want to talk about a sad story? Like, this guy whose wife pretended that she disappeared, saw an opportunity, ran off with another guy. They had a funeral, and then later was revealed to have faked the whole thing just so she could go off and hook up with somebody else. Like, he's such a tragic character in that way. Like, man.
And I love it. It's like, we could watch here. You can watch the video of the fake funeral. Oh, you have a headphone adapter here. We could both watch it together. Just like, oh, poor guy. And then when you look at the other teachers, the other teacher's text, he's like learning about witchcraft because that's what he thinks the monsters are.
Yep.
It's like just little tiny peeks into characters that you know nothing about. It's so much fun, and like that whole bus sequence was great, and I love the fact that the whole, oh my god, he's gonna kill Brad, the drone's coming, and like that whole like thing back and forth. It's like kind of slapsticky and everything, but it's played off really well, and it's someone who's trying to hide a secret identity and all the stuff that's going on. It fits in this context of the movie, of the world, and knowing how Tony is and how he designs things and everything, and then giving it to a 16-year-old, seeing how he's going to play and interact with it and stuff, it totally makes sense. And I mean, it's kind of a callback to when he was talking to, his suit and everything before, but this is different. It's so much more like in your face peril and everything like that. And it's just, look at the baby mountain goats, and the entire bus just, huh? It's just so dumb. And I love it.
It really is an amazing moment in that movie when, he's given this gift, and it does the setup of, is Brad a target, and he shouldn't say yes. You already know that it's going to be bad if he says yes, because this is kind of a callback to the, do you want to activate kill mode or whatever.
Instant kill mode.
And so it's kind of a callback to that, and you're like, they're kind of running with this joke again in a similar neighborhood or whatever. And he does he's a target. and then it cuts to space and a satellite door opens and you're just like, oh god. Like the level of escalation that it goes is really amazing. It's funny because to me this is how you do a sequel well. One of the things that, you know, is a problem frequently with sequels is they take the thing that was funny in the first movie and they do it again. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they don't know how to be original funny again, so they just do it again. But you also want them to stay true to what it was, and you want to see those funny moments and stuff like that. And to me, this is how you do it. You play upon the expectations. People know the second is Brad a target, that he shouldn't say yes, and that if he does, whatever's going to happen is going to be bad. And they blow it up to such a scale that you can't help but laugh, even though you were waiting for it and you were waiting for the joke to be made again. It's just so big and grandiose that it is one of the funniest. Like the second time I saw it, even knowing it was coming, the moment it cut to space, I couldn't stop laughing about it because it's just such a big overreaction to he has a picture I don't want him to have on his phone.
Yeah, and I mean, just the intricacies of what happens in that, how all the players are doing their own thing, and it's true to character too for all that. It's like, you know, Flash is like, oh, I'm gonna steal these really dope looking glasses, and then, you know, smacks him. Did you just hit Flash? No. After Edith says, you know, do you want to call off the airstrike? And it's just like, oh my god, of course he's gonna say no to her, but Edith is of course gonna take it as a no. We're just gonna kill him, and
Yeah.
just everything that happens, it's played out in like choreographed in such a way that it's almost like a perfect jokey scene. I love it.
Yeah, it's very traditional slapstick, and you know, it's a scene that also would work in a comic book. And
Hmm.
I would say one of my favorite things about this movie is that it feels like a comic book movie. You know,
Oh yeah.
it it kind of falls along a lot of the same tropes and lines and stuff like that. And it's funny because it manages to walk that line of, like you said, the baby mountain goats thing. In a comic book where there's panels, you could have Peter do the, hey, everybody, look, baby mountain goats. Then you have a panel of everybody looking out the side, you know, looking for the baby mountain goats. You have a panel of him jumping through the roof, destroying the drone, and then landing right as everybody turns and goes, I didn't see any mountain goats. And it makes perfect sense in the realm of comic books. When you film it, it gets a little harder to sell, but I love that this
Hmm.
movie just goes for it anyway. The idea that, like, no, it's we're going to do it. We're going to say that they all look, and it's exactly the amount of time it takes for him to leap out of the top, destroy a drone, land back, and then we'll all look back at him. And
Yeah, and then immediately after, Betty, you don't think we might have noticed, but he's like, oh god, his hair's just like just all over the place. He's got these glasses on. It's like, uh, but you know, we like your new European look, and it's good.
yeah.
It just, oh my gosh, it's again, it's just the dumbest thing that you know she's not going to say that. Oh yeah, we know you're Spider-Man. It just, but it worked really well.
Yeah, the movie is incredibly fun, just across the board. It just airs on the
Mhm.
side of being fun, and it nails it in a way that is like that's the big thing. Is so many movies try to get that like extra little goofy joke or that little break in reality, and it winds up like really shooting itself in the foot.
Mhm.
um, and I can't believe I'm gonna do this, but it's the perfect example. I'm gonna invoke a movie I pretend doesn't exist. You know, it's the Indiana Jones 4 weird CGI prairie dog. Let's inject
Yeah,
some humor into this moment when it doesn't necessarily need it, and it just breaks it and it falls flat, and it ends up ruining everything around it. This movie knows when to push that forward and knows when to hold it
Mhm.
back, and it's very very smart about that, about its
Exactly.
jokes.
Yeah, I mean, the world building alone gives you the situations that you're able to kind of push those boundaries of humor and everything. And being able to see, you know, again, based on the tiny bits that we know of like the ancillary characters and everything, where like something might actually go. Like going back to just when they're on the plane. how, Ned's trying to get MJ and Peter to sit next to each other. So he brings up a very real thing of, oh, it's a perfume allergy. It's like, it kind of makes sense. It's something that, could potentially like swap seats and everything. But then the teacher, who's in the past lost someone on a trip and is worried about that, totally goes overboard, just changing so many seats around that I don't understand why that would come to mind. But like, instead of just, oh yeah, you two swap, it's okay, you go over here and you're here, then you two who are just getting on the plane sit in those seats, and it's like, okay, but it makes sense for what's going on, and it's such a good joke, and it totally ruins every plan that Peter has, and it's perfect.
Yeah, it really does. I think perhaps one of my favorite moments in this movie, and it's a little on the nose, and it was a moment that came up that I could see coming, and I was like, oh, are they gonna try this? And they do. They go for it, and I was like, you know what though, I really dig this scene, which is the moment when he's finally decided, I'm going to be the hero. He's on the plane with Happy, and Happy tells him, go design your suit. I'll take care of the music and the flying. And Peter starts doing the Tony Stark. He starts playing with the holograms, and he starts going through and reprogramming and messing around. Another fun place where you're going to want to pause when you get it on home video, because there's some fun Easter eggs with the suits. Yep. I saw one that looked like it was either the stealth suit or the velocity suit from the video game was in there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I saw the Mark II armor from Big Time when he loses his spider sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun little interesting nods there, but he's doing the whole Iron Man hologram thing, and he's doing it in a shirt that looks exactly like one that Tony wore. It's supposed to be just an undershirt for what the spider monkey armor was. I've now officially just named it spider monkey armor.
Yeah, he does the whole like sticks his hand through the hologram to see what it would look like on his arm and everything, and
yeah, and he does it, and it's a risky thing. It's a risky thing to take an iconic role that people are really, precious about, and say, here's the kid doing the thing, kind of a pass the torch moment. But they nailed it. But what I love is that for a moment it's like, oh, they're making him Tony Stark, which I know, honestly, I think this will be the thing that continues to get the most pushback about this movie, is that there are people who simply don't like Tony Stark, don't like Iron Man, and don't like Peter's connection to him. And them continuing that, I think, is going to push people away. But what I love most about this scene is that, yeah, you have this moment of like, yeah, he is the next Iron Man. Look at him doing it. And they put on AC/DC, and he says, oh, I love Led Zeppelin. And it's like, it's like this final point of just like, he's not him. Like, no matter what, he's not him.
Yeah, no, that was actually one of the, I keep saying everything's the best in this. I really enjoyed the whole movie. It's probably my favorite MCU movie at this point. But again, I'm right on the tail of watching it 3 times. So I'm thinking that. But the more I think about it, the more we talk about it, it's giving me like such good happy feels. To talk about him being Tony Stark and the relationship that they have and everything, I get where people aren't happy with that. But the thing is in the MCU, it makes so much more sense for this to happen than him to just be, lone superhero in New York. That's not what it, that's how it was in the comics. In this, there are all these heroes. He grew up with these heroes and everything. So of course it's going to mean something to him. The fact that, Tony recruited him for Civil War and he turned into his mentor and everything, it makes sense for the world that he lives in. And the fact that, Tony looked at him as a protege and everything, and, trusts him to make the right decision. I mean, Peter even says it himself, is that, he trusted me to make this right decision, which is why he gives the, glasses to Beck in the first place. Cause he thinks I'm not good enough to be, the next Tony Stark, but he trusts me to make that decision. He knows I'm always going to do the right thing, which is something that is, very core Spider-Man. He's always going to be doing what he thinks is the right thing. And I like that plays into it. It's like the idea of, you know, him being able to kind of have some tech and everything like that, you know, as a base from Stark, but still be his own hero is something that I'm really enjoying and really liking. And like, I'm excited to see where he goes moving forward with this kind of, not exactly like base of operations, but, you know, support in the first place.
I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think we are. I read a thing. You never know how accurate these things are, especially because a lot of it is speculation. But I heard the speculation is that Tom Holland's contract is 3 appearances in other movies and 3 standalone movies, which means in theory we have hit all but one standalone. As far as a contractual obligation goes.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear they want to do at least one more movie.
Oh yeah.
And I think that they, you know, you mentioned the Sinister Six. We are certainly well on our way. I'm thinking of it at the moment. I'm trying to think of characters that they have established that would easily slot into the Sinister Six. You've got Vulture. You've got Scorpion. You've got the Prowler. Although that would be an interesting with Spider-Verse's success and all of that.
Yeah.
But you do have the Prowler. There were some hints to that. You have the Shocker. You have Mysterio. And I know he quote-unquote died, but did he?
Well, it could always be the bald guy with the glasses.
Yeah,
he can end up being Mysterio.
Yeah, there's a weird scene of him downloading something. It doesn't paint it exactly clear what it is that he's downloading, but likely it's the drone data and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he, you know, edited something together, gave it to J. Jonah Jameson, which so happy that he's back. And that it's J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
So happy about that.
Yeah, you can't. He is the best. Like, that's the thing. And I honestly thought about that prior to this kind of reboot of the universe with Tom Holland, as I was like, man, are they going to do J. Jonah Jameson? And then I was like, they're going to recast him probably, because they're not going to go and get J.K. Simmons back. But I was like, who are they going to pick? There's literally nobody who is better at that role. Like, you can say whatever you want about Patrick Stewart looks exactly like Professor Xavier, and sure, he's a great. I'm not saying that's a bad casting role. It's an obvious casting role, and it's great. But like, there are certain actors who, when you look at them, you're like, oh, they're perfect for that role. They're absolutely perfect. When J.K. Simmons got cast as J. Jonah Jameson, I don't think anybody was like lighting the world on fire with how perfect the casting was. But the moment they saw him, he became that character for them.
And the moment he spoke.
Yep. And then it became, well, nobody else will ever be this. Like, in comic books, he will always sound like J.K. Simmons to me. Like, he became that role in the same way that Mark Hamill is the Joker. You know,
exactly.
That why can't I think of his name? The guy who's from Kevin Conroy is Batman. Like, that's how they sound in comic books to me. J.K. Simmons is that for J. Jonah Jameson. And to have them just kind of acknowledge it and go, yeah, it doesn't get better than him. We're bringing him back. It's so spot on and so smart, and I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, it's just like James Earl Jones is always Mufasa.
Yeah, that's another prime example. What are you going to do? Like, who are you going to get that's better? Sure, you can change it, but why?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do have to give him props, though. Darren DePaul did an amazing job in the Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
Just have to throw that out there. But he's no J.K. Simmons in a movie being him. I mean, oh, man. But yeah, having him back was a great feeling. And speaking of the game, though, if you haven't logged in to play it recently, you can get the 2 new Far From Home suits. So you can get the Night Monkey suits and then also the advanced Spidey. So I don't know exactly what they're calling it. It's like something advanced or whatever. But
yeah, do they call it the Night Monkey suit? I don't think they do. I think they have a stealth suit or something like that.
Suit, yeah.
They should call it the Night Monkey suit. maybe they're worried about spoilers, but although I don't know how that actually probably confuses more than it actually spoils, but yeah.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Night Monkey Suit would have been the proper name for that costume.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've gushed about this a whole ton, and I'm sure there's a ton more that we can go on and on and on about. Just talking with you about it, though, I want to see it again. I'm already in the whole. I might need to see it again before the week starts, but we'll see.
I want to say one last thing that I'm incredibly interested about, because like that's
okay.
the whole thing is like now I'm like attached to this idea of like weird breadcrumbs, and I already talked about, you know, like where's Chameleon? Is he gonna be in? Where is he? What's going on with him? But another one that's been very, very interesting and very, very compelling is what's going on with Flash Thompson's mom.
Oh yeah, I know, right?
It comes up multiple times in that movie with no payoff or no addressing of it. It comes off as little side comments. It's in the text that he starts to read. There's an entire scene at the airport where he talks to his butler about it. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm so intrigued by what this potentially is. I guess we're going to have to wait until a new movie. But I just wanted to put that out there, as that is probably the main thing, even more than where's Chameleon?
Yeah, because I mean, when I saw the text, it's like, "Mother, I haven't heard from you in a few days." Like that's the text. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, "Oh man, like what's going on with that?" And you feel bad for him throughout, like a lot of the movie. Like, yeah, he puts on a brave, like big bravado and everything, but he's kind of a loser in this one.
Yeah, he's getting hurt, and maybe it's just there to drum up sympathy for Flash, to give his character depth, but I don't know, man. In a world where they made Barf the Mysterio tech, I have to think that this is going to lead to something, so I'm incredibly curious about it.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see.
Maybe Chameleon is Flash's mom. No, I don't know.
Well, there you go. Your two loose ends are all tied up nicely, I guess.
She was on the trip the whole time, disguised as what's his
Ah.
name, Sergey. What was his name?
Dimitri.
Dimitri. It's racist.
Isn't Sergey Kravinoff?
Yeah, that's Craven.
Yeah. So yeah, see, we got it.
Yeah, we got there. eventually.
Anyways, John, thank you for taking some time out of your very busy weekend to talk to me about Spider-Man.
You're welcome, Ben. I enjoyed the movie. It is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie. It is certainly up there as of right now with one of my all-time favorite Marvel movies. If you some reason listen to all the spoiler stuff without seeing it, go see the movie.
There's a lot we didn't talk about.
Yeah, I mean it's spoiled for you, but yeah, I wouldn't care that much about it. I knew Mysterio was going to be the villain, and I still had a good time.
Yeah, it actually got me to the point where I was a little unsure. And of course, I think I told you I knew exactly when he did web the thing and pulled it off, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean that to me was when it was confirmed, but there was never a point where I was like, they're gonna make Mysterio a hero. Like, I would have been shocked. I would have been on this podcast just being like, they made Mysterio a hero, man. But there was never a point where I was like, oh, he's going to be a good guy. It was just waiting to see how it was done, how they explained it and all of that. And they did it in such a satisfying and cool way. And I love that most of it was just Jake Gyllenhaal walking around in a mocap suit.
I know, which is really what he wore for the most part anyway.
Yeah, like it's so funny because you see all the behind the scenes Avengers like set photos because they all had CGI suits on top of them. Everybody's wearing those. Like Endgame, when they do the behind the scenes Endgame pictures, it's literally all these famous actors wearing exactly what Mysterio wears, and it's just like that's what they wear. That's all that it is. And yeah,
well, fun fact, the time travel or the time travel suits they wore and everything, they had them designed, but they were going to use practical suits, but they didn't have time to actually make the practical suits, so everyone was just in mocap suits.
Yeah,
for
and
those.
that's what I mean. Like, you see them filming like all these moments where it's supposed to be that, and it's just them in,
Mhm.
I guess, what is now known as the Mysterio
Yeah.
costume.
Which, by the way, speaking of stuff that was filmed, so you know the trailers where he like he's beating the bad guys, then he riffs with the cops, then it shows him getting his passport and everything like that. None of that's in the movie,
Yeah.
but it is going to be in a one shot that comes out with the Blu-ray.
Oh, nice.
Basically, it's a yeah, it like how we had the whole Peter Parker documenting Civil War kind of thing. It's going to be a Peter Parker prepping for his trip. So he goes to the bodega and talks about going on vacation, shows him getting his toothpaste and all that stuff, picking up the passport and everything. So it is going to be used in something. It's just it was a little weird. Like when the movie was over, I'm kind of like, oh wait, we didn't see any of that.
Yeah, it was a lot of little changes happen in movies between trailers, and we live in a CGI world now, so trailers end up
We're
very
looking
different.
at you, Rogue One.
We mentioned CGI, and I know we're winding down, but Ben, there's one more thing I have to give this movie credit for, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't mention it.
Freaking fantastic CGI.
Yes, amazingly good in like a shocking way compared to how it has been, because here's the problem with Spider-Man. One, he has a very bright, vibrant costume, which makes it very hard to make look realistic because it's already a little colorful and over the top. But two, a lot of times you get just Peter Parker doing things, and then you're CGIing a human body doing things that nobody really sees a human body do, and it's very, very hard to depict realistically. A lot of times you get the rubber man kind of aspect to it as he's flipping around and all of that. um, this movie nails it. This movie is the most believable, like, Spider-Man swinging around doing things that I have
Yeah.
ever seen. Like, usually it's just like an accepted, it's gonna be bad CGI when he has to fight as Spider-Man or when he's web swinging, but I'm gonna just let my mind go past it. They freaking nailed it. It looked great in probably 90% of the shots in this movie. It looked phenomenal.
So a couple things. The only CG that I actually saw, I was like, oh, that's not too good looking, is when Happy flies in and lands on the tulip field. Like it just didn't look very good.
Yeah.
But like aside from that, you're right. It looks great. Like all the CG work with like the elementals and stuff like that was so good. Like especially the fire one, having all the molten metal just dripping off of it and stuff. Fantastic. Speaking of web swinging though, like they were really smart in how they did this. When Peter is swinging with MJ at the end, they kept the camera just so tight on her that it looked so good because of that, as opposed to trying to, oh, this is them flying through the air and swinging and stuff. It's like having her freak out and like scream and her wind going every which way and everything. It was amazingly like telling without showing anything. And I actually really appreciated that.
Yeah,
Want to throw that out there.
movie nails it on the effects side in a way that makes me hopeful. Like that's a sign that they're really behind this movie when they give time and budget to it, and I think it paid off because I think the effects in this were amazing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
especially Venice in the daytime with with a human being non-dressed up Spider-Man. It looked great.
yeah. And there's a lot of weight, like when he jumps off of something or something. It's not that like he seems to sail through the air like he weighs nothing. It's like, oh, that was a big jump and he just made it. And it made me think, well, I wonder how much of that was practical versus how much of it was CGI, because
Yeah.
there was a awkwardness to it in the way that human beings have an actual tendency to move. And yeah, it's just good. And I know we were rapping, but like I wanted to shout that out because I actually took a moment in the movie theater where I was like, this is damn impressive. Like I haven't seen it look this good ever before.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, and no, we're wrapping, but it's like again in Venice when not when the tower's going down, but when that one wall is like kind of basically falling off, and he's swinging around it, then like bounces through a window and then back up, like that whole sequence is just masterfully done.
Yeah.
It's neat, and it it looks practical, but I'm like, they obviously can't do that with the actor. So whoa, what the
Yeah.
hell? But anyways, so John, Spider-Man: Far From Home. Would you give it 2 web shooters up?
Yes, sure. Is that what a perfect score is?
I guess. I don't know.
Because this
Th-
is.
4 Mysterio illusions.
Yep, I'll give it 4 Mysterio illusions out of 4 Mysterio illusions. I don't know. I thought
Okay.
it was exactly what I wanted this movie to be.
Yeah, me too. So until next time, when we get back onto our normal World of Warcraft type of topic, yeah, where can people find you, John?
Follow me on Twitter at John_Jagger. Catch me talking about video games on the podcast Core.
Gore.
I was wondering if I was gonna get you because you were drinking as I got to it. I was like, is he gonna be able to do it?
Oh yeah.
Um, Catch me playing Dungeons and Dragons on There Will Be Dungeons. That's where I am. Ben, where can people find you?
Wow, there's a lot of places to find me now, actually. Find me on Twitter. I am at Ben Bumhofer. I almost said the old one. I also do a show with Aludra where we talk about geeky stuff and everything called Box Fort. So you can check that out. We've finally got the RSS feed up and going and everything. So it's going to be on all your feeds of what you were looking for. I also do a show with TBK, also known as Ryan Reader. You can follow us on, talking about D&D on D&D discussions. And I have joined the cast of Plus 5 to Hit, a D&D show. If you want to hear us play D&D, that's where you can find me doing that.
Look at you joining the cast.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might still be kind of temporary. I'm just kind of filling in while someone's gone for a few months. So
Well, hey, you're gonna be around. Your character's gonna be around doing stuff.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
exciting.
yeah. That the official the character that I'm going to be playing for that is going to be in a session or 2 from now. But currently, I'm guesting as in my guest spot as someone else.
Oh,
Because
exciting.
yeah, well, it's weird because it's like I've made this character just kind of like as a guest and everything to be all like, oh, I'm just gonna be in there and stuff, and they're like, hey, you want to join up? I'm like, can I play a different character? And they said, sure. So yay,
All right.
yeah. This show though, Azeroth Roundtable, you can find us on Twitter. We are at AzerothRT. If you have any questions, comments, want to tell us what you thought about Spider-Man: Far From Home, you can send those emails to AzerothRoundtable@gmail.com. And of course, all of our episodes are found on AzerothRoundtable.com, as well as on iTunes, Google, Spotify, basically everywhere else you can look for, your favorite podcasts and mine.
All right. And this is the part of the show where we thank you for helping make this possible. A big thank you to everyone who's gone to patreon.com/AzerothRT and thrown a little support our way. We'd like to give a special shout out to the Murloc Club for going above and beyond what is expected. We greatly appreciate your support for our show. So a shout out to Taryn, Megan Pye, Brandon O, Caleb M, Jesse O, Birch Cobber, Haster, Sash, and Aaron. Thank you so much for your support.
Also, don't forget to thank our new patrons, Megan Pye and Jen, for joining us on the patron train.
Yeah. They were in
Yeah.
the Murloc Club, so I figured we got them.
Yeah.
But yeah, special
I figured,
shout
but
out to you. Welcome aboard.
Yeah,
Toot,
I wanted to
toot.
throw that out there because I'm all like, they're cool. Special shout out. It's your birthday. Oh, yeah.
An extra special shout out to me for creating this amazing background that we had for this episode.
Yes, you definitely need to check it out on YouTube if if you haven't yet, which will be posted at some point, of course.
It's the answer
But,
to the question, what was it like in the 90s?
Yes.
It was
exactly.
like this.
Yes. Well, think about that in memoriam. This is what John would have put together back then in school.
Yeah, it just needs a little more Comic Sans. I mean, we got two
Exactly.
different fonts, but maybe at the bottom I could write,
Like put our names.
yeah, Ben and John, but in Comic Sans.
Yeah. But with that, John, again, thank you very much for joining me. Everybody, go check out Spider-Man: Far From Home. It's pretty darn good. And until next time, be good to each other.
Thwip.
And that's a show.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it!
Oh, I'm gonna end the show. Here.